Welcome to Smash Metafiction. This week, we unearth the pieces of our favorite old stories and stitch them together into a brand new abomination that we like to call Collaboratory. Joining me this week are MeganBob.
Hi, everybody.
Miles Schneiderman.
Good to be back in the collab.
And from the Lawful and Orderly show on Twitch, Andrew Young.
Wow, the Collaboratory is a lot more spacious on the inside than I would have expected.
It's bigger on the inside.
It's as big as your own imagination.
Oh, wow.
Come
Some
with
real Mr.
me
Rogers stuff.
and you'll be... Sorry.
So for those of you who are not familiar with the show, the way it works is that the four of us have all brought together pieces of old stories, characters, a setting, a goal, a MacGuffin, and a genre. We're all going to reveal what we brought, and then we're going to basically boil them down into basic archetypes, and we have to write a pitch for a screenplay together based on the format advocated in the book Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. So, without further ado, it is time to open up the Tupperwares and unwrap the foil and see what everyone brought. Andrew, since you are the guest, would you like to go first this week? Who is your character?
My character is Captain Romy Silvers from the book The Loneliest Girl in the Universe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
Tell me about Romy Silvers.
Romy Silvers is 16 years old and the last human aboard the starship The Infinity. She's alone alongside a whole bank of human embryos stored for development later on a colony ship headed towards what's hopefully a new life for Earth. She's not supposed to be alone. She's had this trauma and there's been these events, but things are changing and it's very exciting and very suspenseful. She's very competent and very anxious, and she writes fan fiction about a fictional paranormal romance show called Loch and Ness.
Okay.
Done.
What about
Sold.
her do you like as an archetype? What's like the part of her you'd want to preserve in our new story?
I think as an archetype, maybe the most important thing is like she's a survivor who feels in over her head despite like she's actually very competent.
Okay. And next up, MeganBob, who did you bring for your character this week?
All right, unwrapping the foil. What are these pair of green Speedos? It's Namor, the Submariner.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. This is my total lack of surprise face.
I love Namor, the Submariner. He is from Marvel Comics, originated in the 40s, I believe. He is a sometimes hero, sometimes villain, most of the time anti-hero because he's not a person you would want to hang out with. He is a Prince of Atlantis. He is the Marvel version of your Aqua's Mans. But the original, I should say. He predates him, but nonetheless. And has a lot of water powers and all that. I don't care as much about the water powers.
You care that he's a dick?
Yes, I do, Miles. Ding, ding, ding. Correct. I care that he is a crotchety person who doesn't like to cooperate with others, but nonetheless finds himself joining teams periodically to work on projects or teaming up with villains to work on villain projects.
Is it important to you that he's like sort of regal and a king or like a genius or important, or can he just be like any old dick, you know, like
Just like any dick, you know? Long, short.
Oh.
Dick, all those things. He is, well, never mind. As far as what I want to preserve about his status, I would say he doesn't work with low status very well, but it's not important that he be regal necessarily, just that he have
just
some
that he think
level
of himself
status.
as important.
Oh,
and regal,
yeah.
right?
If this was taking place in a Thieves Guild, he thinks he's hot shit in the Thieves Guild. You know what I mean? Like, that's the important thing. And that he has some level of skill to back it up. An insufficient amount, we should probably clarify, but an amount.
I'm writing down Namor, dick, comma, king, and then in parentheses, actual or just in his mind.
These are all good points about him.
That is his archetype. All right, well, I'm sure Namor will be a joy to any story that he has added in, just instantly makes it better. Miles, who did you bring this week for your character?
I brought Howard Beale from Network.
Oh, my.
Okay. Yeah, tell us about Howard Beale.
So Howard Beale is an old man who has worked in the news for a long time, but he's on the decline. Nobody cares about him anymore. His wife left him, and he's slowly going insane. And the more insane he gets, the more truthful he becomes in terms of, like, he kind of becomes like a weird prophet. An angry prophet decrying the hypocrisies of our times, I believe is the phrase.
Wow.
He's kind of the man with nothing left to lose who, like, speaks truth to power and kind of is...
Yeah, he's like the fictional version of Bill Hicks, basically.
Okay.
Aww.
I like him because the crazier he gets, the saner he sounds. But everybody treats him like a crazy person anyway.
Is he actually fairly accurate, or is he just like all hot takes?
No, he's
very
quite accurate in
Yeah.
terms of like his assessment of what's going on.
Yeah, I've not seen The Network.
It's a movie about where mass media culture is heading in, like, news and television and stuff like that. It's from the 70s, and it makes a bunch of predictions that are supposed to be, like, really out there and kind of sci-fi in terms of where it thinks our culture is going. And then in our current day, none of them were extreme enough.
Yeah,
it's basically
great.
about, like, reality TV shows and, like, fake news and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, way before its time.
If you ever heard anyone say the phrase, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, it's from that movie.
From Howard Beale.
That's from Howard Beale, yeah.
Very good, Miles. So, my character is from a recent movie called Us, Jordan Peele's movie.
Oh, please, which one? Which character, damn it?
I have brought Red from Us.
Okay.
For those of you who have not seen Us, there's minor spoilers here, but I'm going to avoid saying anything too spoilery. But basically, Red is the sort of evil twin archetype. They see themselves as basically the same as someone else in the story, but they had worse luck. They were born into unfortunate circumstances, and so they hate the good twin, and they want to, like, kill them or replace them or prove that they're better than them in some way.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Other examples of the evil twin archetype would be Mojo Jojo, Megamind, or Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy. Basically, I'm the same as you, but you were the favorite, and I was the unfortunate one.
Bearded Spock. Sorry, no.
Bearded Spock, yes.
Killmonger?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Like, you got the good hand, I got the bad hand, but if we had switched circumstances, I would be you. We are going to have to figure out who she's the evil twin of, and it could be any of the other three. We'll just have to see where it goes.
Claire, can I just tell you that when I was coming up with my shit, like, that movie was really, like, in my mind. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to use something from it, and I'm glad I didn't, because I'm glad you did.
Oh, that's great. Cool. All right. So next up, Andrew Young, what did you bring for your side dish this week?
Well, my side dish is our genre for the story, and that genre is the time loop.
Oh, jeez. Why? All right, tell us about the time loop genre.
For those of you who might not be familiar with the time loop genre, time loop stories involve characters forced to relive a single period of time, usually like a day, but they're the only ones that remember those previous iterations, and generally speaking, they have to overcome a character flaw or learn a lesson or deal with like a mad scientist or super-powered child or somebody who's causing the loop before they can exit. The most famous example is Groundhog Day. But there are a ton of them, especially in long-running sci-fi or supernatural TV shows.
Oh my god. All right, do this.
Cool. So exactly what goal they're going to have to do is maybe going to be dependent on what another person has decided. But next up, let's see. MeganBob, what did you bring for your side dish?
I'm delighted now because what I brought for my side dish is the setting.
Okay.
And that is the Regency era.
Okay, tell us about the Regency era.
What's the Regency era?
So what you need to be thinking about is Pride and Prejudice.
Oh,
that time period. So we are dealing with men in fall front pants and Hobie boots and getting around in carriages and that sort of thing. But the thing I particularly like about it is that it is a setting in which there is little to no privacy and there are people around you watching you all the time.
Guys, I'm very excited about this already.
This is going to be fun.
All right, Miles, what is your side dish?
Oh, my side dish is the goal.
Think about escaping a time loop.
Think about how pretty Namor will look in those pants, Miles. That's the thought you need to be having.
Think about escaping a time loop.
No.
I only just got that.
I brought the goal from the movie Crank.
Okay, what's the goal from the movie Crank?
The goal from the movie Crank is to get revenge on the person who poisoned you before you die.
Oh, wow.
That's so perfect.
Oh,
That's
wow.
really interesting.
I don't know if you guys see Crank with Jason Statham, but it's great. I love it.
I'm going to
Okay.
now. It sounds fun.
We're in some weird territory here, people. We are in some weird territory.
Think about escaping time loops.
God.
You said it differently this time. We made a change.
Oh, no. Yeah, dang it.
All right, I am last. I have brought the MacGuffin. I brought the MacGuffin from Raising Arizona. That's right.
What?
It is a very important baby who has been lost or kidnapped.
A regular VIB.
Also the MacGuffin from The Hangover.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll see how this goes.
A strong will see right out of the gate.
Okay.
So, all right, I'm going to run down what we got so far. We have Romy Silvers, the sort of in over her head yet tough survivor underdog. We have Namor, a dick who is a king, whether actually or just in his own mind. We have Howard Beale. He is a man who is losing everything and caring less about who he offends as he loses more and speaking truth to power. And finally, we have Red, who is the evil twin. Our genre is a time loop. Our setting is the Regency era. Our goal is to get revenge on the person who poisoned you before you die. And our MacGuffin is a very important baby.
I can actually, you know what? We can work with this. This is actually going to be okay.
I feel all right about this. So our first task is to come up with a logline. A logline is a one-sentence summary of the story that you would give as if you were pitching to someone. The idea that we want here is that it is a high concept, something that you could explain in a sentence that is some sort of fish out of water story or strange juxtaposition that makes people go, oh, that's a cool idea for a story. You know, Toy Story, like, what if your toys were actually alive? Or Rush Hour, where two cops from different parts of the world have to work together, all that stuff. You know, high concept. What is our high concept going to be for this? Or alternatively, what parts of this story do we think are going to be the weirdest and hardest to fit together right now?
I feel like it's the characters. I think all the side dish elements go together actually like surprisingly well.
Person's been poisoned, and that's the time loop. Every time they die from poisoning, the time loop resets. Is that what we... Okay.
For sure.
In order to break the time loop, they have to, like, kill the person who poisoned them.
Yeah, something like that.
The most logical thing to me is that Romy is the person who's been poisoned and Red is the villain.
That would make sense.
So we've got a time loop, we've got the poisoning, but we've also got this baby. What if the goal is to take vengeance on the person that did the poisoning, but that's not actually how they get out of the time loop? Like, that's one of the twists, is that this character finally gets their vengeance and then they still loop again and then figure out it's the baby. The very important baby is what the actual escape clause from the time loop is.
Do they have to kill the baby, or just what do they do with the baby?
They have to rescue the baby.
Okay.
Or stop the baby from growing up into something the baby should not grow up into.
Oh,
They have to
that's
influence the
interesting.
baby in some way.
Yeah, some good omen stuff. Try and influence that baby.
So let's say we have our person gets poisoned, they die, they think they need to get revenge, and the first half of it is sort of like a murder mystery of who killed me. They then find out who killed them and they kill them, but then they keep looping and they discover that's not the issue. They say like, oh, I have some unfinished business I have to do before I die. And then they remember on the first day they did something bad, they decide to go back and do it right, and this time because they do the thing right, they die for good and everything is set on a good path, right?
Okay,
Is
I like
the idea?
that. Yeah.
Is Namor a baby?
Either Namor or Beale should be like, there's always a person that like the time loop eventually convinces like to help them, right?
Yes.
Like a friend.
Yeah.
So do you think,
Right.
is that Namor or is that Howard Beale? I feel like it might be Howard Beale, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
feel like
suspect it's Howard Beale.
I feel like he's the weird, like, drunk who no one takes seriously, who, like, sees the truth. Like,
Yeah.
he could be that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I think you get his degeneration with each progressive loop as the character gets, as Romy gets closer and closer to convincing him, he sort of degrades, like he gets quicker to a state where he's, you know, being dramatic and shouting truths and...
Where does Namor fit into all this is my question.
I think he's going to be like the guy who's like in charge of whatever the household is where this is taking place. Like he's the fancy rich guy who's the king of this little empire. He might be like a red herring. Apart from these characters, we might also need to introduce one or two more red herrings for murderers if this isn't quite enough. Like we had to do that in the last episode where we needed the whole apartment building full of people.
So this is Regency era, so Namor is going to be like a local rich guy. right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the term.
Yeah.
No, they prefer to be called lords, but you know,
local
or dukes
rich
or
guy.
whatever.
Okay,
Local rich fuck.
Landed gentry.
There you go.
Yeah.
So he's going to be Lord Namor, and he's going to be one of the red herrings. The true person who I think we're going to say did it is Red, who is like, maybe she seems really nice, and she's like the sister of Romy or something, but is killing her to like get revenge against her or take her place so that she can maybe marry the man that Romy wants to, or something like that. You know, one of those kinds of things.
I mean,
And
yeah,
then-
Regency era, definitely a lot of marriage-based plotting.
And Howard Beale's going to be a person who like ends up helping her out in some way, right? We cool with
Right,
that?
yeah.
All right, so what's the baby? What's with the baby?
I've been trying to come up with a thing whereby, like, the baby is like the twin, you know,
Yeah.
the twin grown up, but I don't know how, like, the time loop would have to be years instead of days.
Yeah.
Think about escaping a time loop.
That's what I am thinking about that, Andrew. That's exactly what I'm thinking about.
I'm thinking about the Regency era and the fact that a baby might be the ward of somebody or need to become the ward of somebody because of a death.
What if we have it be something like the person who poisoned Romy, we discover actually was trying to poison the baby and poisoned her by accident. And she needs to then stop them from poisoning the baby because they double back to correct their mistake later in the day. But I still don't know why that baby being saved needs to be a thing.
So,
Well, why is there a time loop?
Can I propose a radical shift to the time loop genre?
Sure.
And actually, they've done this a little bit in About Time. It's not exactly a time loop, but he goes back and relives various moments in order to fix them. And sometimes he goes very far back. What if this time loop is a lifetime almost? Instead of having these day-by-day individual events, we see this person's life play out over and over again.
So it's kind of like the butterfly effect, that shitty Ashton Kutcher movie that nobody liked but me.
Yes, yeah, much closer to that than to Groundhog Day. And then the baby can become, it can be an important baby that grows up into an important person. And the poisoning becomes less of an actual poisoning and more of like a mental, like, corruption or negative influence.
Well, I think it still has to be supernatural in some way for them to be reliving the same events, right?
Yeah, that's true. Where does the time loop come from if it's
Yeah.
not the...
I don't mind that idea, Andrew. Let's put it on the shelf right now and come back to it if we need it. I think there could be a version of it there, but I think that a lot of the fun of the time loop thing is you pick this one day and they like learn the day really well, like moment by moment, and you see the same thing over and over again. Like that's the fun of it. And I think you lose some of that if it's a lifetime. Like the tension is a lot more diffuse and it could work, but I think it'd be a very different movie, it'd be a lot harder to pull off, I think.
as far as Regency era stuff goes, I suppose one reason why people might want to harm a baby would have to do with inheritance.
Well, what if it's some sort of adoption situation where some child is being like given to a different person? Or like
That was common.
There's someone who's like, I don't want this child. I can't have this child for, social reasons.
Okay, I got a thing. Romy is the sole heir of a household or something like that. And the way that she decides to, like, at the very end, prove that she has, like, learned her lesson or whatever the thing is she adopts a kid who's, like, one of the servants, who's, like, really nice. And then they get all of her titles and stuff like that. And that would be the baby equivalent. It would be like a kid who's a servant. We could have the kid who's, like, the servant be, like, a person who's really nice to her all the time. And she like, everyone in my family's so evil and corrupt and terrible. There's no one I could leave my fortune to. And she discovers that this person actually should get it. And she adopts them. How do we feel about that as the end?
I like it. So the baby is less a MacGuffin, is more of a reoccurring character who is in like most of the loops. And they're always like a source of support. But not until Romy gets into this character's whole backstory does she decide to rescue the very important baby and then make the very important baby very important.
That works.
Are you guys okay with that? It's kind of weird, but
No, I think that's fine. I think that there have to be stakes, right? So like, why does it matter if somebody inherits this house or not?
I think it would just be the person who would get it would be really cruel and terrible and like do really bad things with the money they get.
Okay.
MeganBob, were servants part of a like household? I mean, they weren't slaves, but would they have gone with like the house if someone had acquired the estate? Would they have like continued on with the estate?
Some
Quite
might
possibly.
have. Some might have, but if it stayed within the family, they absolutely would be very likely to stay. Leaving a household would have been very challenging to do because you'd have to have a letter of reference. And if somebody dies suddenly, you don't get one.
I was just thinking if Red is a cousin, technically the next person who might inherit Romy's estate if she were to die. And then the stakes are not only the family estate, but also the people there.
Claire mentioned that Red could be Romy's sister, which I think makes sense too in that regard.
Oh, yeah.
It could be a thing where Red is Romy's older sister,
Yeah.
And like was supposed to inherit, but her parents were like, no, you're a piece of shit. We're giving it to the younger sister. And she's like, oh, fuck you.
You're a real mojo Jojo. We're not having that.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think if we're going to do this thing as like a weird mystery, we should give other people motivations that they would want to kill Romy. Like, I think Namor should be like her uncle, who...
Sinister uncle.
He's like a Scar type, but he later turns out to not just be a dick, but not actually be murderous.
Yeah,
you know?
look, I mean, not to infringe the name of Namor with sexism, but in the Regency era, women are not supposed to inherit anything.
Yeah, no, they're not.
And I like the idea that Namor would like say that out loud to people's faces.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Well, actually,
yes,
says Namor.
And then I also think maybe whatever it is causing the time loop, it could be something that they learn from Beale, like when he's drunk. Because like one of the reasons he's so fucked up is because he's been through some of this shit. He like touched this supernatural time loop thing, whatever it is, and like hates the memories of it. So if he's the reason the time loop is initiated, now he is potentially implicated because like, who is this guy? Why does he know about the supernatural thing? You know what I mean?
Do we have to explain the time loop? Because I mean, some things don't, like Groundhog Day doesn't. Russian Doll doesn't really.
I don't think we have to explicitly explain it.
He could be the sort of thing where like he seems to remember things across the loops and is basically like telling Romy, you know, oh, you still haven't learned your lesson yet every time she dies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe like he doesn't reveal that until halfway through the movie, but then he's like, geez, I'm so tired of watching you go through this. Like, you know, like.
And we don't have to explain it. It could literally be Red poisons her.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, she's going through this time loop, and like Beale could make oblique references to it. Like it's something he knows about.
What would her title be, MeganBob? A Regency era, like what? Lady?
Baroness? Countess?
Are the parents still alive?
No.
I think not. I think they're like recently dead, and she's about to turn like 18 or something and inherit the wealth, and her like uncle has been like the steward of her wealth up until now, but now she can like actually own it and make decisions. It's like her 18th birthday today or something like that.
I like it.
That's why there's a party and they're reliving this like weird party. There's lots of NPCs around to be suspicious.
I like that a lot.
I'm going to say Duchess, or if you want to just say Lady, whatever, is fine. I mean, there's an order to all of this, but I don't care enough to get into all of it because it doesn't actually matter.
I mean, look, the point is that Regency era, like, I'm thinking about Pride and Prejudice as I've been instructed, and she is Lady Catherine de Bourgh, all right? So I think we should use Lady.
Okay, so our logline is... A young Regency-era lady discovers that she has been poisoned and has to solve the mystery of who poisoned her before she dies. She fails, but then discovers she's caught in a time loop and can basically try over and over again to figure out who poisoned her, and is attempting to solve the mystery while dying from poisoning over and over and over again in a cold and unfeeling world where everyone's partying and ignoring her.
That's right.
Basically, that do it?
Yeah, I think that's good.
And also there's a baby.
Also there's a baby. Well, or a child, rather.
That's the end of the log line. And also there's a
the
baby.
elevator doors are opening. And also there's a baby. Again.
Yes, I have your script. I have your script, Mr. Young. Thank you. Goodbye.
Think about escaping a time loop.
All right. That needs to stop. That needs to stop. All right. So now we have arrived at the beat sheet. What are you going to do to
stop it, Claire?
I have to learn some sort of lesson, right, to stop the time loop of Andrew making that joke. So now we've arrived at the beat sheet. This is where we're going to work our way through an abridged version of the steps advocated by the book Save the Cat for how to write a high-concept screenplay. The 12 steps that we have are opening image, theme stated, catalyst, break into act 2, B story, fun and games, midpoint, bad guys close in, all is lost, break into act 3, finale, and closing image. So our opening image, this is going to introduce us to who our main character is and what they want. They should be in a relatively stable situation, but something should need fixing in their life, and they should probably need to learn some sort of lesson. What do you guys think for our opening image? How does our movie open?
I was really hoping we could open on her putting down an empty glass. The implication she just finished drinking.
Yeah.
What we'll find out later is the poison.
I think in the vein of like Groundhog Day, if this is like at a fancy ball or something, is it night, do we want to say? And it's like goes throughout the night, or...
Balls would start at like 8 o'clock at night and go till 4 in the morning.
Regardless, I think there should be a band playing and like they start some song. As soon as she sets the glass down, it will be our sign that a new time loop has begun, right?
Can it just be an instrumental of Put Your Little Hand in Mine?
What if we opened at the parents' funeral?
Okay.
And everybody's there. Namor is there. There's like a weird drunk guy there. That's Howard. She and her sister are obviously there, Romy. At the funeral, somebody hands her something to drink. And then there's like a violin or something playing at the funeral, which can be our musical cue.
So is this both her parents' funeral and her 18th birthday?
Yes.
As we said?
Yes.
That's a rough
In
day.
a Regency novel, that would not even be that weird.
Yes, that's what that is. The funeral's in the morning, and then like the ball is in the evening. Her birthday bash is in the evening.
Like they...
Oh, no. I do want to point, side note, they would not do that, but doesn't matter because she's going to have a goth-ass birthday.
So it is a wake/birthday party.
Oh, Jesus.
It's an all-day event.
Here's what I'll say for the timetable of the day. The funeral's in the morning, and then the wake is in the afternoon, and then the birthday party's in the evening.
It's fucked up house.
So it's not a combination wake birthday party. It's a wake and then also a birthday
Yeah,
party.
It like
fair.
leads into it. It transitions into a...
Oh my God.
This is
They
better.
just changed the streamers. That's the only thing.
They've done the black bunting.
Her uncle scheduled it, and she was not 18 at the time, so she could not object. But and he said it would be more cost efficient, and everyone was in town. We'll just do it on the same day.
I love Namor so much.
That seems
What
something.
a dick.
So they're at the wake. She gets the wine. She drinks it. Everything seems okay at first. What should need fixing in her life, or what's like the lesson that she needs to learn? Is it maybe like that she looks down on the help? Because the ultimate thing that she needs to do is like to, give her fortune away to a servant. So is that what we want to do with her? Or is there some other lesson that we think that represents her learning?
Instead of looking down on the help, maybe she like has faith in the aristocracy. Like no one would ever do this to get me out of the way. Like that's not how we operate.
Oh, I like your class concerns, Miles.
I mean, you know me.
That fits Romy's character. She doesn't want to be in charge in the book that she comes from. So it makes sense that fits the archetype of like, I want somebody else to take the reins from me so I can just do my own thing and just be a person instead of being the lady of the estate.
I was thinking something about her lesson should be not to just reflexively trust the people around you to have your best interests at heart because they're related to you or because they're the same type of people as you.
Right.
That's a bad reason to trust them.
Sort of like don't necessarily trust the path that others have laid out for you to a certain extent because
nice.
I think that her issue could be the first day when she dies of poisoning. It's like she doesn't tell anyone that she's dying of poison because she doesn't want to cause a fuss like a little bit,
Yes.
And her uncle like basically says like, oh, we're going to have your birthday party on the same day as the wake to save money. And she's like becoming the lady of the house now, but he's still kind of controlling her because like she now has technically the decision making power. He's only related by marriage or something like that, but she's like, oh yes, if you think that's right, uncle, that's fine. And she's like still letting other people control her and like not stepping out of what's socially correct and everything like that.
And we can even like bring in something about her not necessarily treating the servants well,
Right.
Like that fits with that too.
So classism is bad, and
Yes.
or class is bad, or whatever you want to put it. Social castes are bad, and also don't be afraid to break free from the life that others have planned for you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay,
very
And
cool.
social hierarchies.
yes, and then social hierarchies. All right, so now it's time for our theme stated. In this section, someone either needs to state what the theme of the movie is going to be, or they need to state the exact opposite of the theme, and by the end of the movie, whatever statement they said will be proven true or false. So which character do we think is going to say the theme, and are they going to say it, or are they going to say the opposite of it?
I can see her saying, I don't know if I feel like this is the right thing to do. Should we really have a ball? I know it's my birthday, but, we did just have a funeral. And Namor saying, this is the right way to do things and you should trust your family and all of that. And then we all know what a dick.
I was going to say, actually, would it be better for Red to say it? Having just poisoned her sister, wouldn't it be more ironic at the end for Red to say, like, you should always trust your family. We,
It
Uncle
might
Namor
yeah,
knows what's
it would
best
be-
for you, and we're all doing our best.
That would be good. I like that. And also because she's the evil twin, I think it's a nice mirroring effect if she says what the theme is not,
Yeah.
Nice.
You should trust your family. This is the way things are done. Very cool. And now, save the cat. This is a part where our character will literally or metaphorically save a cat so that we know, like, oh, this is a cool character. This is an interesting character. They take some sort of defining action that endears us to them or makes us interested in them for some reason. So what is going to be Romy's action that she takes? That is her save the cat moment.
What if, like, one of the objections she raises to doing the funeral and the party on the same day is that the servants are going to be working all fucking day?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And then when Red states the theme, or states the opposite of the theme, she's like, that's why they're here. They're servants. They do what they do. We do what we do. This is how it works.
Right, yeah.
Nice.
I like that.
So then the save the cat moment could also tie into that somehow.
In some ways, we don't want her to do too nice of a thing because she can't have learned her lesson yet. But like a small nice moment would be good, even if it's not like enough. You know what I mean? We have to like see that hint of good in her, though.
Yeah.
One of the younger servants, not the kid, but a kid, is getting tired by the end of this day and is sort of falling asleep at their post. And she sends him to go do something that she knows is going to take a really long time, and it just tells him, like, just go to bed.
Yeah.
I'm sending you to go. Could you go find this one thing for me? I don't know where it is. It could be anywhere.
Yeah, it's a super white liberal thing to do. Like,
Right.
Give one person the night off.
yeah, just like to ease your conscience.
That sounds great. She's still learning, Miles.
I know.
Give her some
I know.
credit. All right.
I believe people can learn.
Let's give the baby a name, which is not a baby. Like, she's like probably a preteen or something, right?
Yeah, sure.
Scullery maid.
Babette.
Bad bad.
Can she also just be
Eugenia.
French?
That's like a real name, right? Let me.
I don't
What?
know.
Yeah.
Babette? Eugenia? Yeah, they're all real names.
Ooh, Eugenia.
Babette is so good, though.
Proletaria.
Proletariat.
La Babette.
No, Babette is French, and she, her parents escaped the terror, and so now she's
Oh, gosh.
working in this kitchen. Her parents, I don't know, perished in the ride over.
All right, you're muddling our metaphor here, but our political. Now we're getting complicated. Is it right to guillotine people?
Her name is now Babette. I have decided, making an executive decision. Now we have the catalyst. This is the part where something enters into this character's life and permanently changes it, puts them on a new path, all of that kind of stuff. And this is the thing that will eventually lead them into the topsy-turvy world of Act 2. I think this is probably like the symptoms of the poison starting to kick in, or
I
her
think
realizing
it's-
it. Is that what we think?
I think obviously
Okay.
that's what it is.
Okay, cool. What form is that going to take? What's this scene going to look like?
Does she have a moment where she coughs and she pulls away the handkerchief and there's blood in it?
So satisfying.
Is that the right era? That feels like the right era.
You know what? It's never the wrong era for that. It's a good trope.
It would be cool if she went to Red, and rather than Red being like, oh, it's not a big deal, don't make a fuss, like, she knows she's already gone, like, it's so potent or whatever. So she's like, oh dear, we have to help you, and like acts really concerned and like starts yelling and telling people, which kind of like throws the scent off of her. You know what I mean? So
Yes, that's so good.
There had been talk about her not telling anybody that she was dying. So, like, do we want Red to tell people?
Maybe she tries to make a big fuss about it and Romy waves it off. Like,
oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I like that. Red's like, we need help. And she's like, no, I think I just need some sleep or whatever. And Red's like, are you sure? I'll go get people. And she's like, no, I remember what you said. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I'm going to do
that's
my
exactly-
part. I'm not going to cause a fuss. I don't want to make a big deal. So yeah, I'm just going to keep my head down and do my duty.
That's
like,
great.
And
Red's like, okay.
if you're sure, you
yeah.
know. So she goes to sleep and to sleep it off, sits up in her chair, like cup of wine in her mouth, and like sets it down or whatever, right?
Yeah, so you're saying that she, like, goes and lies down and dies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Just making sure that's where we're at.
Love it.
So that is our first loop. Now we're going to break into Act 2. This is the main arena of story that our setting is going to take place in. Our character has just crossed a threshold, has left the normal world, and is now in the weird world of Act 2. So our Act 2 is the time loop.
I did have the thought, because someone's going to hand her the wine, right?
Yeah.
Can we make it clear that the reason she doesn't know who it was is because she didn't care, because she just assumed it was some servant?
That's really great. Yeah.
So she's surrounded by people every time the loop starts because she looks around to look for who may have given her the wine that she, had just finished.
Absolutely.
And
Right, but it was like a
everybody's
minute
there.
ago, and she didn't. Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Because the loop starts after she's already started drinking the wine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the loop starts
that's
with her
fine.
like setting the empty glass down on a tray.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
What is her first day like in Act 2? I imagine she like is kind of freaking out and like not really hiding it as much. Kind of being like, I'm here, right? I think usually when you do a time loop story, the second one, they're just kind of in shock and like not really believing it, right?
Yeah,
Right,
they ask
like-
people like, didn't you say this already, or didn't we already do this? Or they think, I had a strange dream, and it feels like, this has
Yeah,
already
feels
happened
like, feels
before.
like it's already happened, yeah.
So they,
Right, and that's kind of the denial loop.
Yeah.
And then, so
I love it.
We'll move on to the anger loop.
That's a great loop. But listen, we're going to get there. It's a great loop.
That's my favorite loop.
What else do we want to do in this second one? She probably noticed Howard Beale the first time, but just kind of like ignored him or whatever. He's like some weird, would it be interesting if like a whole bunch of people were coming by who were supposed to be like distant family members, but everybody's like, who's that guy? And nobody like knows who he's related to, and nobody recognizes him. But out of like politeness, they don't really say anything. You know what I mean? They just like let him pay his respects and go to the party. Like,
I like how in addition to the Howard Beale archetype, he's also slowly becoming the drifter.
So we're going to start doing the loops and stuff now. What is the B story? What is the tonally different, oftentimes lower stakes counterpart to the A story? Oftentimes, but not always, it will be a friendship or a romantic relationship, or it'll be some way where we get to shine a spotlight on characters that don't get to do much in the A plot. Is this going to be like a Namor thing? Is this going to be a Howard Beale thing?
I think it's a Namor thing.
I imagine this is going to be a pretty close, like first person type thing where there's not going to be scenes that Romy's not in. It's all going to be like her POV, I imagine, right?
Yeah.
It has to be, yeah.
What's Namor's plot going to be during this day?
I like the idea that he's so gauche that he's trying to find a young widow he can marry for her wealth or something terrible.
That's really great because it gives him like he's not actually as put together maybe as he seems, or it's revealed that he's not the wealthy uncle. He's actually, the very, very poor uncle.
He's trying to like hit on a bunch of ladies. We initially think it's like, his family members have just died and how gauche is this? And this is a sign that he doesn't care about them, and and he just poisoned this lady. He's so callous, and how could he be doing this at a time like this? But in truth, what we discover by the end is that he's worried that Romy's gonna like completely cut him off because she has the ability, and he's looking for another like rich lady he can leech onto because he has no skills.
Because class!
And he's gonna get thrown out on his ass because he's been such an abusive dick to Romy, and once she realizes it, he's afraid that he's gonna like kick her out, and he actually doesn't have the spine to poison somebody. Like,
okay, I love it. I like it.
So he's doing all these suspicious things because he's trying to like get these women alone to talk to them or to woo them, or like, because I think he has to be suspicious, and going up and talking to a bunch of young eligible widows or young ladies isn't necessarily like put him in the spotlight for being a murderer. Romy has to think that he's about to inherit all of her money.
What if he's having some sort of romantic tryst with a woman who's maybe like rich, but like maybe much older than him or something, and it makes him seem like not cool because it's like an old lady and he's like a young, maybe slightly hunky dude or something like that.
Yeah, Namor's hunky.
And it could just be like, I don't want people to know that I'm with this lady because I'm just using her for her money or something like that.
How does that make him suspicious of murder, though? I think is Andrew's point.
If he's like sneaking off to have trysts with this lady, like in weird, you know what I mean? Like, and like lying about where he's going, it could be because he's sneaking off to be with this woman.
Oh my God. What a trash person.
So now are the fun games. This is the part of the movie that delivers on the promise of the premise. Whatever the high concept is, we explore it, we have fun with it in multiple different ways. There are ongoing problems here, but they're the surface level or fake problems relative to what's coming later, and this section typically culminates in a minor victory, which will be short-lived. So this is kind of like the lighthearted part of the time loop montage, where she tries different things to exit it. She like probably tries to solve the mystery. She maybe has a little bit of fun with it. Like, what are some of the different loops you want to include?
Miles earlier said that there's an anger loop, which I think there definitely has to be, where she like just like there's shots of her like going around wrecking everything and like yelling at people and kicking them out and like screaming about how the class system is garbage and they're all just fake here for her to leech off her money.
That's like loop 7 or 8, I think. I'm totally down with that one.
I think so. Like the first loop is the denial loop, right? So like she does basically the same things, but a little bit weird, and she forgets to send the servant away, right?
Yeah.
I need this. This is such a dumb loop, but I want one loop where she shags some dude she really had her eye on, like, I don't know, the vicar, like really wanted into his hot trousers, and she's like, I'm gonna die, fuck it. And also fuck this dude.
100%. Like she spends the whole loop.
That's the hedonism loop.
I'm not going to be the one to tell Bob she can't have this.
Yeah.
I really want a loop of her doing wild detective work, like where she's memorized everybody's like secrets and she's just spouting them off. There's the shot where the camera pans around the room and she just points out everybody and says, she's been sleeping with the gardener. And
I think that's another down the line one.
I think that would work really well post midpoint for a thing that I want to do, because I think we want to have the realization that everyone's trash, but that has to come like after the midpoint, because that's like her whole thing.
I also think we need to remember to bring Howard in here. With every successive loop, she starts talking to him more.
Yeah.
And like not necessarily learning what's going on, but learning that he, for whatever reason, is maintaining his memories of what's happening. He knows what's going on. He like drops hints, but he's too drunk and crazy to actually tell her anything useful.
What if like it could be a fun thing at the party where he has like a violin and plays a song for part of it to like make everybody dance, and he plays a different song each day.
Oh,
wow.
And like that's the only thing that changes, and you don't necessarily realize it the first couple times you're watching the loop, but you're like, wait, that wasn't the song you played yesterday. Oh wait, that's a different song, like over and over again. You know what I mean?
Your
Like
musical cues, Claire. I like it.
she's probably going to try out a bunch of different like alibis of people. She's going to like follow around her uncle for a while, and then during this time we can have the reveal like, oh, I thought you were trying to kill me for like maybe a loop or two, but then she discovers no, he's actually just doing this affair and he's really embarrassed about it because he's afraid she's going to get cut out. Okay, maybe it was somebody else. Maybe it was well, who's another person it could have been?
The head of the Women's Society for improving the lives of the less fortunate. They had names like that.
Maybe that, like, or one of the servants or something who's like, oh, jealous of her.
Yeah,
like,
I want to bring the servants in again.
Right.
I mean, there's a butler, right? And we have to at least address the butler did it.
That is fair.
That's true.
We have to address the butler. There's an incredibly suspicious butler.
I was going to say, he's very creepy.
The butler's played by Crispin Glover, for the record.
Okay, so the butler's the guy she sleeps with.
Okay.
What?
At first he's super suspicious, and then she fucks him.
She's like, he's not all right.
That's how you prove somebody's not a murderer.
Well, no, but she doesn't know he's a murderer, but you know what? If he is, screw it, right, Bob? Like, gonna die anyway.
Screw it. That's
Okay.
my family crest.
You know what? Screw it.
I think we have to have a loop where she just gets really drunk.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
And then maybe she like goes to her parents' grave and like sits on it and cries and stuff like that and talks to them,
Yeah.
We have a loop where maybe she just like runs away from home and goes as far out as she can to try to get away from the estate.
I was thinking that.
Yeah, and then she ends up just like out in the woods and like she dies that night just like in her sleep, like after falling asleep in the woods.
Do we want to have what I'm going to call a Titanic loop, where she ditches her party and like goes to where the servants are like partying on their off time or whatever?
Oh yeah, that could be really cool. That would actually be a good one for towards the end, is like she's starting to like chill out more and like the first hints of like, oh, maybe this is the lesson you need to learn kind of thing. You know?
It's the acceptance loop.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
That'd be good. Like she realizes that the party is never great, but like whenever she goes and spends time with the servants, like she brings a lot of light to them and they're just genuinely fun, nice people. They like teach her how to play a card game or something like that.
We don't have a Ned Ryerson character yet. Do we need a really...
Oh, that's true.
Somebody that she runs into every loop that she, in polite society, has to deal with. And
what if it's some sort of like really dry meeting or like conversation she has to go through, like someone where they have to like settle some really complex business? It could just be somebody who's like explaining something to her as a way of showing how like smart he is. But
God.
He's just like condescending and talking down to her and like mansplaining stuff to her about like how to be in charge of a household or something like that.
Yes.
I think that a lot of the stuff could be also like how to be a proper lady and that kind of thing. Like, a lady always blah, 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 blah. And you should get married as soon as you can. So a man can take care of like all of the old timey stuff. Yeah.
And where do we want Red in all this? Because like we don't want to give away that it's her, right? How can we like put her beyond reproach?
I think it would be interesting if she is actually her ally. Whenever she tells her I've been poisoned, like Red believes her and is helping her investigate the mystery. She should be by her side like all the time.
She should believe her about the time loop thing too, right?
we need an early loop where she convinces the sister and then it doesn't help. She doesn't believe her. She stops helping her when she talks about the time loop. So like she stops trying to convince her the time loop early on.
Okay, I like that. That's fine.
Yeah.
And then the person who does believe her is Howard.
Yeah, so that could be interesting.
Red is her ally in everything, but she does not reveal what's happening to her.
Right, yeah. We could eventually get to the point where she's like, okay, let's make you throw it up or whatever. The poison's so strong that it's not going to work. Like, you know what I mean?
And Red keeps throwing out ideas for who actually poisoned her.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And she's like, that person can't be it because blah, blah, blah. And she's like, keeps coming up with different people, but she's never the person on the list.
Right.
And so I actually think the midpoint, this is the this changes everything moment, the big reveal. This is where she's going to discover that Red killed her.
Okay.
Because this is going to lead into our like kind of section where she's going to try to then get revenge on her and do all of that kind of stuff, but that's not going to be the real thing she has to learn. So I think this is a good time for that.
So how does she find out?
So we've got a scene early on where she turns around to look to see who has poisoned her. Maybe she finds...
How about it was a servant, and like she eventually puts the clues together to figure out there was a servant, I caught the back of their head, but I didn't know who they were, blah, 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 blah. She follows them, and there's some trail of clues, and she manages to put together that was the servant who handed it to her, and she eventually talks to her, and eventually gets her to convince that Red was the one who told her to serve her this wine.
She like starts hanging out with them and like befriends them.
Can it be at the end of a loop that she she sees one of the servants and the loop ends before she can like really get into it, and then the next loop starts. Yeah, and then the next loop starts with her like urgently running, try and find the servant.
Yeah, and then she like grabs them and then like interrogates them, and then they reveal that Red told her to bring this wine and make sure she drinks this cup, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we can do a moment too there where it's at the beginning of a loop, right? So she goes and finds the servant, and she's like, "You have to help me." And the servant's like, "What the fuck? Why are you even talking to me?" You know, she has to be like, "You grew up in this town. Like these are your favorite kinds of ice cream. Like I know you." You know?
Right. All that stuff. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, we could even do a thing where like she convinced her that Romeo was really terrible, and Romeo was like, "I am kind of terrible." Like maybe or.
Does the servant know it was poisoned?
If somebody says like serve this wine to this person and don't ask questions, like I think you can kind of put it together. But like she kind of turned a blind eye, maybe.
You people in your high society play your games. I don't know what the fuck they are. It's not my business. Like that's what you do, right?
What's the difference between you and any of the others?
Right.
And it could be a thing where she's like, what if I said no? What would happen to me?
Yeah.
And like this could be like kind of the dawning realization for Romeo where she's like, oh, this servant is evil and wicked. Whoever poisoned me is evil and wicked. But then she realizes like, no, the servant doesn't have a choice. She's completely trapped by her class. And if your master tells you to poison someone, you have to poison them or you die. Like,
that's good.
And your family dies, like that kind of thing. So,
well, not quite dies, but yeah.
Or is whatever,
is
fired,
ruined,
sent away without references,
cast out, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe like Howard has been dropping hints this point about like what you have to do to escape the time loop is blah, blah, blah. And you have to like learn your lesson and fix the problem. Maybe he said something cryptic like that during the fun and game section. Like, what would be the phrase that she thinks would mean like find the person who did this to you and kill them, but actually later means like learn your lesson, be a better person, don't be like the other people around you. You know what I mean? Like,
can it be like, where did the poison come from? Or find the real source of the poison.
Yeah. There you go. Find the real. Find out what's really killing you or something.
Oh, that's good.
I think like find like where the poison came from and destroy it. Like make sure it can't hurt anyone else. Like that kind of thing.
Find
like,
the source of the poison and get rid of it.
Find the source of the poison and kill it.
Yeah,
I think would be like we can make it that direct. Yeah. And then like you will escape the time loop or that kind of thing.
So she finds out her sister did it.
Yeah. So she needs to kill her sister.
Yeah, she does.
If we want to give her the moral high ground, it could be a sort of thing where, and I don't know if we necessarily do, but she figures out that her sister poisoned her, and she confronts her sister about it, and her sister then tries to kill her, like, physically, like strangle her, and then they have a fight, and then she kind of kills her in semi-self-defense.
Okay, so what if at the end of one loop she confronts her sister, right? But then like the loop ends, and then in the next loop, Romy like figures out her sister's like routine or whatever and starts like plotting to kill her. She doesn't have to die of the poison, right? So what if she confronts her sister at the end of the loop? Her sister kills her physically.
Yeah,
she wakes up in the loop again, and then she's like, okay, well, if this is how it's going to be. Because that way we preserve some moral ambiguity, but it's still a self-defense thing. Because she still knows that no matter what she does, her sister's going to kill her.
Right, okay. What does she do to actually kill her sister in the end?
I mean, so she has all this knowledge at this point, right? She knows where everybody is at every point in the loop.
She could like make some sort of weird Rube Goldberg machine that kills her by like dropping something on her head or whatever.
That's what I was thinking, but I don't know if it's too... Is that too silly? Is that too
No,
goofy?
How about... What if it's like at one point during the day, there's two kids who are playing on the roof like with sticks like sword fighting, and one of them hits a gargoyle on the roof and it falls off and lands on the grass and just cracks into a million pieces, and she arranges to have her sister at that spot. She sees that happen a few times, and she arranges to have her sister at that spot at the corner of the house so the gargoyle falls on her head and kills her.
Zombie kill of the week.
Fair enough. It works.
So that happens, and then she's like, yeah, I did it. But then the time loop still happens, and it doesn't change anything. I think this is kind of like Bad Guys Close In. Like the time loops are the dark, weird time loops,
right.
So she tries to kill her sister. it doesn't work because she still resets. And then also in this section, maybe she has like some really dark, sad ones. This is where she could like yell at everybody for being like shallow and that kind of thing, and just like be super depressed and everything all the time. She probably talks to Howard and is like, you said it was going to work and it didn't work.
Nice.
How dark do we want these to get? Because there's a lot of cool dark things she could do.
Poison everyone,
burn down the whole estate. There could be like loops.
I don't think we want to go quite that dark.
Yeah, I don't think we want her killing anybody except for her sister.
At least not on purpose.
Think about escaping a time loop. What desperate things would you do to try and escape a time loop?
Gracious.
She is going to be looking for other interpretations, right?
I don't know if we necessarily have to like have her have a whole bunch of alternate false things. She can come to the real one pretty quick, I think, after this.
I also like the idea of one where she goes to like the family chapel and just like stays there the whole night and dies there. It's just
that's a good one. That maybe is a happy sad one.
The depression loop.
Yeah, there's a sad one where she just lies on the bed all day and doesn't get up, and people come and go, and they say, they whisper conversations in the hallway, and it just doesn't matter. Or
you know what? I was actually thinking the equivalent to where she's calling people out, that can be like the Groundhog Day one where they've done this like a million times and knows everything, but it would be that she knows everybody's secrets. Like that's how we do it, but that still doesn't help. And that's like, kind of a penultimate one. So this is kind of her like all is lost moment. This is her dark, sad thing. Yeah. Do we think that maybe she then just basically goes and like hangs out with the servants again? And like, because out of all of the loops, one of the early ones, she spent the day with the servants and she realized, that was the happiest one. She didn't realize it at the time, but she's like, if I'm going to have to spend eternity like in this loop, I'm just going to keep spending it with the servants because they have fun and at least it's a nice, good day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's perfect. I think that comes right after the chapel loop.
Right, yeah.
I like that.
She like spends the whole time meditating and like realizes.
Yeah.
That's the acceptance loop.
We mentioned earlier there was going to be a dude who's like mansplaining stuff to her and being like a jerk. He should be trying to talk to her about getting her will in order as one of the things. Like figuring out who her successor was going to be in case something happens to her, and that could be one of the things that he talks to her about so that we have that idea in our mind that like now she can pick a successor,
Can there be a bit maybe earlier on where we see her like studying the law? Maybe it's when she's trying to figure out if it's her uncle. Maybe it's right before she figures out it's her sister.
Oh, she's trying to find out the chain of succession, right? Like,
And so in this scene where she goes back to this mansplainer guy and like asks him these probing questions, like she obviously like has way more knowledge than him, but she's trying to get like confirmation on some things that she's only read about. I assume that the idea was that she was going to get it ready to like figure out how to sign over the thing.
I think this is our Act 3. I think our break into Act 3 is her realizing, like, I'm just going to die. I should, like, get my affairs in order and figure out who I would pass things on to. And, like, that's our break into Act 3, right?
He says something. Maybe in one of the loops, the fade out, the camera, you don't pick up the audio, and it's just, like, her thinking or, like, the sounds of the blood pounding in her head. But this time she hears him say something and stops him. It's like, wait, what do you mean you can pass the inheritance on to anybody? Or, like, landed, the servants can be made inheritors?
Right, yeah. So after our break into Act 3, she realizes, like, the main issue I had was I've been a jerk. Everyone around me is a jerk. Everyone's a huge asshole. Like, that's the whole thing she lays out in that big speech where she dresses everyone down. And, like, and I'm just as bad as everyone. And everyone in this is terrible. And if I die and my fortune gets passed on to other people, they're all basically the same as me. And just like that servant said, if it's me getting poisoned or if it's somebody else getting poisoned, it doesn't matter because everyone in my class is trash. We all have no empathy and we're terrible people.
Yes!
So there you are, Miles. I gave it to you.
Thank you!
And she's like, we are the poison. The poison is not what killed me. The poison is money,
Oh my God.
And the only way to get rid of this is I need to pass this on to someone who's more worthy than I am because I am corrupted from the moment I was born because of this terrible class I was raised in. We're at like the finale right now, but the fact that this is supposed to be a baby, I think that this was a poor choice to make it like a baby because she's supposed to be like all pure and innocent, but we all know like as human beings that a pure innocent baby is not the person you give a bunch of money to because then they get corrupted by the money and they turn bad. You want like a reasonable adult and that's not a baby. Like, do you know what I mean by that? Like the person who should inherit money is like a wise, level-headed person.
Well, what if instead of a baby or a child, it's a mother? And
Okay.
and the baby is representative of like the idea of caring for people and like empathy as opposed to living only for like money and status.
Okay. Yep, I like this a lot. So the servant is actually pregnant and hiding the fact that she's pregnant. She's been a very positive influence in Romy's life. She's been in the background. She's been nice. She's been cool. She's basically the only good person in the household, but she's being worked so hard that like she even maybe has a risk of miscarrying because like, you know, she's being worked to the bone and can't let anybody know because she's going to be let go if they discover that she's pregnant because it's going to be too much trouble, right?
Okay.
She then wills this over to her because she knows that this woman will be a better ruler and also intelligent and an adult and can't be bossed around by people because once she has money and she has power, she will have the spine to stand up to people. The only reason she hasn't is because like she would get fired and she didn't actually have actual power. And her baby is going to be the future. We maybe like do some weird thing where after this, we cut to like the baby growing up and she's our point of view character for a couple scenes and we hint it's like a weird reincarnation thing maybe, or is that too weird?
Well, the baby's name is definitely Romy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
they name her.
Naturally.
All along, the real time loop was reincarnation.
The real time loop was the friends we made along the way.
I'm fine with that as long as we don't like make it explicit.
Yeah, no. We'll be cool about it. But Howard can say something like, if you find the root of the poison and destroy it,
life will be restored. He makes a point of not saying like your life. He's like, then
can it be a second chance? Something with like the phrase second chance?
Yeah, that's a good phrase.
That's a good one. Yeah. You will get a second chance for life.
Or it could be like your house will get a second chance or something like that.
yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So now we are at our closing image. But before we do, I'm going to recap because we changed a couple things. I'm going to go through this whole thing again real quick and see if we got it. All right. We open at the funeral. The parents just died. They're very sad. We have Romy. We have her sister Red. We have Uncle Namor, who is the weird old guy who's super rich. We have the Crispin Glover butler. And we also have Babette, who is now not a baby, but actually an older woman, like a nice, caring, matronly maid figure in their life. At the wake, Romy discovers that she's been poisoned. She doesn't know who did it because she wasn't paying attention to the help at the time. At one point, she sees Babette is like struggling because she's really weak and tired, and she excuses her to let her go off and do stuff. She has a brief encounter with the weird guy playing a violin named Howard. She starts dying of poison, tells her sister, oh no, her sister's like, oh, someone get help. She's been poisoned or whatever. And then she dies. Wakes up again in a loop, takes her a little while to get her footing, eventually discovers through like, a bunch of false leads where maybe it was this person who killed me, maybe it was this person, discovers that Babette gave her the poison, and she gave her the poison because Red told her she had to. Maybe like even Red knew that she was pregnant or something like that and was holding that above her.
Yeah.
She was going to get her fired or something like that. Romy wants to get upset, but discovers that she can't because basically everything that Babette is saying is true. Like, yeah, if it was not her, it was someone else. She didn't have any power. She was forced into it. She had to think about her kid, all of that kind of thing. And she was actually being selfless because she was thinking about the life of her child when she decided to poison Romy. For a little while, Romy thinks that the source of overcoming this time loop, now that she has learned who murdered her, is to murder them back and to kill the vile one, who is Red. She eventually manages to kill her by dropping a gargoyle on her head, but that doesn't work because she still dies and she still wakes up and the time loop is still continuing, and she basically decides everyone is vile and everyone is terrible. In one of the time loops, there's a guy who's talking to her about inheritance, and she had been tuning him out for a while, but eventually something clicks in her mind that she can give her inheritance away to anyone she wants, and it doesn't necessarily have to be her uncle or her sister or someone like that. It can be anyone, and she realizes the person who deserves it the best is Babette because everyone else in this household is poisoned by growing up rich and privileged.
If she takes action as opposed to just letting things happen to her, she can take control, which feeds into her personal arc.
Right, not doing things the way they've always been done. People are like, this is the way things are done, and she could say something like, the way things are done is how we choose to do them, you know?
Nice.
And we all can just choose to do things differently, and you're just not choosing to do things differently. And then our finale, she gives the thing away, and then she dies of poison, and then our point of view character shifts to the little girl who is like Romy Jr. or whatever.
She should like die in the arms of like Babette and tell her what's going to happen.
And then I think we're at our closing image now, which will be a few years later, and we get to see a little bit of Babette being the new head of the household who's inherited everything, and what happens to all the characters. What happens to Namor? What happens to Red? What happens to Howard? What happens, maybe he's last probably, what happens to the little baby, all that stuff. What do you guys think for our closing image?
So can the scene transition into the closing image be Babette setting down a glass also, or not Babette, but Romy Jr.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
So,
that works.
Like, it's a callback to the time loop, but also it's clearly different. It's a different kind of glass. It has something different in it, or like she's toasting with the glass or something.
Maybe Namor is like no longer rich, but he's
happy.
like maybe he's like learned a skill.
oh, wow. That's growth for him.
That's the point, right? Is that this
Yeah.
is Romy could not change him, but Romy Jr. can. The big shift changed his outlook on life.
Nice.
I like the idea that maybe Babette cuts Namor and Red off, like, financially.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Namor bounces back and, like, is happier because he's more secure. He's learned a skill now and is, like, earning his own living. And so he knows he doesn't have to, like, chase inheritance anymore and marry someone he doesn't want to be with, because he knows that he can support himself through knowing a trade.
Yeah.
Whereas Red, like, does not take to this well. And she, like, has a very harsh life or something like that, you know?
I think maybe it would be good if we did kind of a mirror image. So they're doing a ball, right? But it's very like conspicuously more like the servant parties that we
Yeah,
saw in
that'd
the
be
loops
interesting.
than it was like the formal parties.
Right.
Like,
I like
less
that.
formal wear, less formal dancing and conversation, just like generally more of a relaxed, kind of easygoing tone.
It would also be nice to show, like, that she's more generous if, like, the house has become maybe a little bit of an orphanage. Like, she's adopted a bunch of, like, poor kids from the city and is, like, taking care of them or something like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And like
Yeah.
just like everybody that we see is like being nice to one another, and like nobody's like backstabbing. And it'd be nice also if we didn't hear anything about like monetary transactions, but we heard things about like people giving things to each other.
Where does Red end up?
Married to somebody from the party who is a total asshole, probably.
Yeah, she marries the
Married to
mansplainer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that
There
a
you
lot.
go.
And she's like it could be like she kind of gets in some ways everything that she wants. Like she gets a rich household and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
But-
she's totally unhappy.
Yeah, and this guy's even richer than her family was, you know?
Yeah.
And she's just like completely dead inside and doesn't have any family left. And yeah, it's great. All right. And I imagine like Howard Beale's like, well, my work here is done, and like walks away. And like,
Maybe is he the only one who's like stayed the same? We do the party and everything. We come back to Romy Jr. She's having a great time. Everything's great. And she kind of like looks up and just like sees him like looking at her, like drinking again. You know what I mean?
yeah. What if it's her like 18th birthday?
Okay.
I think that's perfect.
And a weird stranger comes up who nobody recognizes, and he's the same age.
Oh, okay.
Like he hasn't aged in the 18 years.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. That could just be a creepy note to end on.
Yep, and he's just like playing a song for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like
Yeah,
it.
I like it.
So we have it all. We did it. All we need now is a title.
Oh no, why haven't we been thinking about this the whole time?
So I have the idea of we talk a lot about serpents, right, as a thing. I have the idea that one of the weird things about Howard, the first time she sees him, she notices there's a symbol on his violin, and in one of the time loops, she asks him about it. And the symbol is also the name of the movie, which is an Ouroboros.
Oh,
Nice.
that's very good.
Oh,
love
I'm
it.
down. I like
Yeah,
it.
we could call the movie Ouroboros, and she asks him about it, and he like explains the idea of like eternity and repeating and stuff like that, you know, and devouring itself. And one, it's associated with alchemy, which is like kind of ties into poison. And also, I think that she can realize this whole society, this class is just a snake that's eating itself.
Well, and the Ouroboros is also explicitly about the cycle of birth and death, right? And that's where,
Right.
like, that's what happens is she dies and Romy
Yeah.
Jr. is born.
Yep.
I like it.
I love
So the movie will just be called Ouroboros.
Ouroboros. That's going to
Beautiful.
get people real psyched up for some big giant snake movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? We're
All
poisoning
right,
their
plot
minds.
twist. Snake Kaiju shows up in the third act. I mean,
Thank God.
it would not be the first time that in the third act of a Collaboratory, we suddenly decided to have a kaiju show up
That's
with no
true.
foreshadowing.
After all the stuff we talked about, like, then just a giant snake comes up and eats everybody.
Solves
And
all the problems.
Romy has to transform into Ultraman and fight it. Like,
Oh my god. All right, I think we're done.
all right, great.
Cracked it.
We did it! All right.
And that's
Yes.
the weird. That's the feeling I have at the end of every Collaboratory. Is it's like it's a long journey, but
did
you're
it.
like, oh my god, we actually made a thing out of just random stuff.
In some ways, attempting to write a story of Collaboratory is much like being trapped in a time loop, because you iterate and you try over and over and over again until you learn the lesson that you need in order to move on.
That's right.
Time loop for the Kit Thanks.
Yay!
It's perfect.
I
Kid
like
is
how
not
it's
here.
still the kid thanks, even though Kid's not here.
Yeah, ordinarily she jumps on for this, but she's busy, so I'm doing it. On Facebook, thank you to Hayden Reynolds, Robert Ramsey, Jeff Polier, Bill McKinney, and Adam Mayo. Over to Twitter, thank you to Vladimir Duran, Sid Rabid, Andrew Young, Hello, Andrew Young. Thank you, Andrew Young.
Hey, Andrew Young.
Hey.
What's up, buddy?
Alexander, CJ, Icon Jade, Florian, Asimov Fangirl, Jake Mason, Cosplay Fiend, Cosplay Devotee, Tyler, Jeffrick Present, Sean Boyd, man, there's a lot of these, Sandwich Surplus, Alan Sells, Earth Mofo, Sparky Upstart, Pizamon, Changing Shade, Vander Turner, Cool Down Now, and Just Jake, Flagrantly Fake.
Ooh.
Nice list. Big one this time.
Over to Tumbles. The notes that Kit wrote for me specifically spell it Tumbles and not Tumblr.
I'm not at all surprised.
Thank you to Secretly a Skeleton, Shh. Sid Rabbit Blog, Ink the Cryptid, Trans Girl Jade, Pizamon, and Not Very Bright Raven.
Caw.
Over to Facebook. Thank you to Hayden Reynolds, Robert Ramsey. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
Okay. It's funny because Kit usually reads Facebook after the Tumblr, so actually, like, it's ambiguous there.
Does she? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine, though. Want to thank everybody who supports us on Patreon.
At
patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast.
Oh, and one last thing. Andrew Young, thank you so much for being on this episode with us. We really appreciated you helping out.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure to be on. This was a hoot. It's several hoots.
So many hoots.
But a different hoot each time.
It was kind of a mess, but hopefully Future Miles, who's caught in a time loop of his own right now editing this, will make it all make sense.
Future Miles caught in that anger time loop.
Yes.
Never getting out.
Andrew, do you have things you'd like to plug or let people know where they can follow the things that you do and make?
Sure. First and foremost, everybody should come over on Monday nights, 8:30 Eastern, to twitch.tv/nowsayers. I'm part of a crew of people who do a improv RPG show. Ooh. The shtick is we explore the lives and adventures of bureaucratic cogs in a big magical city, and we all take turns as story guide, and it's a blast. It's 8:30 to 10 p.m., and we have a little bit of audience participation, and it's a hoot.
And that is Lawful and Orderly.
That's the Lawful and Orderly show. That's correct. The other thing, if people want to find out other cool things, you can go to bit.ly/microrpg, all lowercase. That's just going to take you to my website, and there's links to all the micro RPGs that I've written, other cool things, but definitely like For Sherlock Holmes and a Vampire, Tank Robbery. I just released Cutants, which is great about adorable
I'm
collectible
very intrigued
monsters.
by that name.
Yeah, Cute Mutants, Cutants.
Does what it says on the tin, as they say.
They all do.
And For Sherlock Holmes and Vampire is, of course, a classic. If you have not checked it out, it is quite amazing. So Andrew's great. Check out his stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you for bringing us an infuriating genre that made me want to tear my hair out.
My bad on that one.
That's the privilege of getting to be the guest.
I think that Andrew's suggestion shaped this episode in ways that we could not escape, no matter how many sisters we killed. And I, for one, thank him for it. It made it very interesting.
Yeah. All right. Great.
See, he can get away with that. If we had done that, Claire would have actually killed us.
Yeah, think about it this way, Claire. You don't have to do this one again. You've done it. Time loops are done.
Yeah.
The next
That's
Collaboratory Clean Slate.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Collaboratory. Next week, The Shadow versus The Phantom versus Darkman versus Dick Tracy.
Smash Metafiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Volatile Reaction.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
All right, sounds good. So what's this? What is the situation that they are in, which like exemplifies how this status quo is different from before?
Sorry, I just love that we all went silent because we're like, we can imagine the revolution, but not what happens after.
Stop calling me out, Bob.
No, it's
No.
not you, it's everybody.
Think about
I'm
escaping
trying-
a class loop.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God. So now that we know where we are ending, does anyone have any additional things that you want to insert or things you want to talk about that we didn't get to include, or any like deleted scenes you feel strongly about?
I just want to talk briefly. Not even talk. I just want to announce that Namor looks so damn good in those pants, and his junk looks huge in them. I just wanted to put that out there.
Got it.
Is it a sham?
important.
Like, do we discover is like, my junk isn't even that big, it's just normal sized? Or is it like
It is just normal size. It's standard human junk.
that's like in the part where I like that idea when in this scene when Romy's like reveals his secret if he's in the affair with the older woman. He's like, I didn't want to tell people because I was afraid, and he's like, all of his things are getting revealed, and he's like, and I shave the hair on my arms and I don't tell anyone, and like he's like, and my junk is just normal sized. Like,
Speaking of Namor, I would like to have a scene where I'm waiting for Bob to finish dying.
I'm sorry. It's the sentence, my junk is just normal. Okay.
Oh.
welcome to Smash Metafiction. This week, we unearth the pieces of our favorite old stories and stitch them together into a brand new abomination that we like to call Collaboratory.